Greenlight Network presents Football Time.
Hey, and welcome to the Football Time Show. We're here for our NFL Week 6 recap of the week. Interesting week to get into. A lot of the elite teams started to separate themselves. I think you were right there on an all favorites money line parlay, and then one of the favorites didn't quite come through for you on Monday Night Football, but it was favorites week. It was a close favorites week, but it was a favorites week nonetheless. So a lot of favorites won, but we'll get into one that did not win. The streak is over. London was good to the Jags once again. Team Britain, Jacksonville, off the 20-game losing streak schneid, 23-20 over the Miami Dolphins. I think, needless to say, we can probably cross off this Dolphins team here. I saw a little bit of spark from the offense. I thought Tua looked pretty good, but once again, the run game was nowhere to be found, and that defense just can't seem to get stops anymore. I don't know where it came from, why all of a sudden it's not as good as it was, but it's not. And Trevor Lawrence, I thought, played really, really well in this game, along with that Jags rushing attack. Jags starting to come around a little bit. Last 3 games have played pretty solid football. What'd you make of this game?
Yeah, I kind of expected at least, a little bit more of a fight from the Dolphins. It seemed like they had that win, at least towards the end. You saw the head coach really upset after the final whistle, because I'm pretty sure he felt as if they had that game in the bag also. But it turned out to be a win for the Jaguars. They finally break their losing streak. And, as you mentioned, they've been playing better over the last couple of weeks. I still think they have a long way to go before we can consider them to be competitive. But I think that this win, at least, is a good step forward. And hopefully they can build on this. Yeah,
definitely so. Is there any chance Miami can salvage this, or at 1-5? It's sort of, it's a lost cause at this point. I mean, they still have not had their full set of theoretical receivers in Fuller, Waddle, and Parker. I think Parker's supposed to be back this week, but lost cause for the Dolphins, or they're still, maybe they can come around and at least work their way into a 500 season.
It's really hard to tell. Because I can't quite, we saw really good production, from the quarterback position. He had over 300 yards this week. I know that Jacksonville's not really considered to be a good defense by any means, but, they can play tough against people at certain weeks. And this wasn't one of them, because statistically speaking, he had a pretty good game. But I can't quite pinpoint it. This week it seems to be the defense. Earlier on in the season, it seems to be the offense. They just can't kind of, meet in the middle and play solid, a solid game from both sides of the ball. And I think that's their downfall right now. Maybe they can repair it, but it's just hard to predict. As you mentioned earlier, we've seen good defense from them at some points, and they were completely non-existent in this game, which is one of the reasons why they lost.
Yeah, definitely so. We'll see if Miami can find themselves back on track. We'll see if Jacksonville can sort of start to spin in some wins here. I always said I thought this team would, improve week to week to week, and then sort of by the end of the season, they would, I wouldn't say be a good football team, but be a solid football team. And you're starting to see Trevor Lawrence really start to make some offensive plays out there. All right, let's move on to one of the bigger matchups of the week. It did not turn out to be that big of a matchup. The Chargers met Earth rather quickly in this game. 34-6 Baltimore Ravens. The Chargers could not do anything on offense. Once again, that run defense, I think, is becoming more and more and more of an issue. I mean, they had 3 different guys over 50 yards. The Chargers defense is becoming a big problem. And in a game like this where their offense can't get going and can't find a rhythm, it really sort of leaves them no leeway to win games. I know, everybody was getting excited about the Chargers, but I think this one sort of shows time to pull back on the reins here just a little bit. I don't think they're quite ready to be in that sort of big boy category where we put the Chiefs, we put the Bills, we put the Ravens on the AFC side of things.
No, and this goes back to the way they played last season. Even though the numbers looked really good and they were very flashy, they couldn't win games. They couldn't close out games. They had a lot of mental mistakes and defensive lapses as the season progressed. And even though they're a much better team than they were last season, you can see that there's still like a maturation process that they're going through right now. And this is one of those learning, hurdles that they're going to have to go through. Unfortunately for them, it came in one of the most, anticipated games of the week. And they just didn't show up. So if you look at the numbers, Baltimore, Lamar Jackson didn't have a great game by any means, especially throwing the ball. He threw for under 200 yards and ended up throwing 2 picks, I believe. So, if I were to just tell you that, there's no way you would assume that the final outcome of this game would be what it is in such a lopsided score.
Yeah, but, you start to dive into those, numbers a little bit. And the offense was really, really poor. I think the Ravens defense was not what we thought the Ravens defense had been in the past. But this game, they seem to be fully healthy. And if that defense starts to come around and be sort of the level we're used to it being at, I think that can cause some problems. And then once again, time of possession is not everything, but the Chargers had the ball for 21 minutes of this game. That left 38 minutes for the Ravens. Last week in that game versus Cleveland, they had the ball for 20 minutes in that game. Now, in that game, they racked up a bunch of huge explosive plays that covered it. This game, they did not. They had 208 yards of offense. They averaged under 4 yards of play. So if you can't get your team off the field, that offense is totally reliable on explosive plays every time. And then in a game like this, where the Ravens basically aren't going to give up explosive plays, you just leave yourself vulnerable. And I think that's becoming a bit of an issue. 2 games in a row where your time of possession is, in and around 20 minutes.
Yeah, I think this alludes back to what I said, that maturation process where they're definitely growing and they're definitely getting better, but as a team, there's still things that they have to go through, they have to be exposed to in order to learn from, and this was definitely one of them.
Yeah, definitely so. So pretty impressive for the Ravens so far, 5-1. Are you ready to move the Ravens up into that sort of Super Bowl caliber echelon teams, or are you still a little bit on the maybe they're on that little bubble outside looking in?
I know that they're good. I know they're a good team. The record obviously proves it. The issue with me then becomes the way they played against those lower echelon type teams. And they've struggled with some of them. Yes, they pulled out a W, but, you look at, for example, this week, we knew that the Rams were going up against, obviously a game we're going to talk about in a little bit, but a team that's
20 seconds.
a team that's much better than the opposing team. You expect at least an easy win, and we really haven't seen that from this Baltimore team so far. So that's the only part that gives me pause. But as far as considering them being a good team, I think they're a really good team.
Yeah, it's a little funny because I think the narrative with the Ravens and Lamar Jackson in the previous couple seasons has been they always beat up on those lower tier teams and dominate them, and those are the games you want to take the Ravens. And so far this year, they've needed 50-yard field goals to beat, lower level teams. And then they've come in and, they beat up the Chargers. They beat the Chiefs. It's just a little funny, narrative. That's sort of where you have to put it. It's all relative. This year, the Ravens are really good versus good teams and sort of okay versus bad teams.
Yeah. But they're getting wins. That's all that matters.
Yeah. Their record is 5-1, which sort of says everything. This one was an interesting one. Vikings win in overtime 34-28. Really, once again, the Vikings dominated this game. How they found a way to be tied and going into overtime, I'm not 100% sure. They have gotten themselves up to 3-3. I don't know how much I trust this team. I pretty much think I would never take them as a favorite. I think this game alluded to it. They have some solid numbers. Cousins went 373 for 3 touchdowns. Delvin Cook was back, 29, 140. You start looking at the team stats here. The Vikings have 571 yards of offense. They had 38, minutes of possession of the ball. They ran 84 offensive plays to the Panthers, 68 offensive plays. They averaged 7 yards per play to the Panthers, 4.5 yards per play. Basically, everything in this game said the Vikings should dominate this, and yet somehow the Panthers sort of found their way into overtime. There are 2 questions in this. Do you trust the Vikings? And then you flip it over to the other side. Early on, Darnold was atrocious, borderline like he shouldn't be playing NFL quarterback, and we need to start looking at the backup here. He got a little better in that fourth quarter, but I just don't think the Panthers are going to be able to reach their goals, especially now with Christian McCaffrey, out until at least week 9, week 10, with Sam Darnold back there. And do you trust the Minnesota Vikings to win football games?
So first off, Minnesota. I don't trust this team. I don't trust them whatsoever. Do I think they have a lot of really good players, a lot of very attractive names? Yeah, definitely so. And when they're all healthy and really playing on all cylinders, they're tough to stop on offense. The issue becomes, can you get that every week? And that's been the issue so far this season, is that, you expect that explosive offense week after week, and it just doesn't show up at times. And defensively, they don't have the ability to completely stop opposing teams enough to keep them in games when they can't score on offense. That's been their issue so far. And it's Jekyll and Hyde with them, which is one of the reasons why I can't trust them. Now, for Carolina and Sam Darnold, I know that his numbers don't look good, but a lot of that had to do with his wide receivers. They were dropping balls left and right. It seems like every time they tried to get something going, a receiver would drop the ball when they would hit him right in the hands. Now, some of them were bad throws by Darnold. I'm no Darnold defender. You know this. I think he's okay. He's got a good skill set, but I haven't seen anything from him to make me become a defender, a Sam Darnold defender. With all that being said, I don't think it was completely his fault. And the fact that McCaffrey is in there is also going to it's going to hinder that offense to a high degree. So I think they'll be okay going forward, especially once McCaffrey gets healthy. They're still within the race. It's not completely out of the picture for them to become competitive and try to get in there. But it's getting tougher and tougher as the weeks go by.
Yeah. I will say they're in every one of these games. And, you mentioned it. They had no reason whatsoever to be in this game. And they somewhat, found a way to work this thing back into overtime. So I do think they're a little bit like the Vikings. Not quite, as flashy as the Vikings, but they're always going to be one way or another. The game is going to be close. They could probably beat an elite team, and they could probably lose to the worst team in the league. Either one of these. It should be interesting coming up with the Vikings Cowboys. I could see the Vikings dominating this game, and I could see them losing by 50. So that's always a fun way to start your handicapping out of this thing.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, next up for us is a pretty solid game, I thought, overall for the Indianapolis Colts. Once again, Carson Wentz, I thought, looked really, really good here. Granted, it's been 2 weeks of very, very poor teams in Miami and in the Texans. But 2 good weeks of Carson Wentz, 2 healthy weeks of Carson Wentz. A great week by Jonathan Taylor, 14 for 145. We talked about it. The Colts probably were going to get off to a slow start this season with their schedule. They've won 2 straight. what are you seeing here with the Colts? Are they ready to take off and sort of put together enough wins to make this division in the AFC South competitive here?
Well, they do have some positives going for them. One, that running attack seems to have really come alive. It's one thing that I continuously talked about during the preseason was they had a really good rushing attack. We didn't quite know what we were going to get from Wentz, and it seems like it's been a roller coaster so far. But these last two games, as you mentioned, although against poor teams, poor defenses, it's still he got the job done. He did what he was supposed to do, which is come out and win and perform well. He was very efficient in this particular game, and he didn't really need to do much. I believe he only threw 20 pass attempts or something like that, but he got a good amount of yards, and he got a couple TDs in there.
It was his good rushing to have attack. Ty back as well, I will say.
Yeah, that's another good thing that they have going for them is they're getting Ty back. And although he doesn't look like the same Ty from the last time we saw him on the field, it's still a great addition to that, wide receiver core, which realistically speaking didn't really have a lot of big threats. Now with him there, I think it opens things up even more for the running backs, which, it only speaks even better to the ability that they can actually come out and really dominate teams on the ground. So they got some good things going. They got a good win against a 14, but they did what they were supposed to do. So good job for them.
Yeah, definitely so. I think there is a chance the Colts can put together a little bit of a run here, and that AFC South might be a little bit more, competitive than we think overall. If Carson Wentz, large if Carson Wentz can stay healthy and upright, which is somewhat difficult to do, it seems like for him. But I do think overall that they can sort of find a way here to maybe make this a competitive thing in the AFC South here. Speaking of the Texans, I don't know. They aren't a very good football team. Only question I ask you, Tyrod Taylor now is day-to-day to come back. I will say that, it's hard to judge off a game and a half, but they look like a much more good football team, I'd say, in that game and a half than I think you or I thought going into the season. But they're 1-5 now. Even if they bring him back, they still aren't going to win enough games to be competitive. Do you sort of park the bus here, see what you have in Davis Mills, who's gotten a little bit better week to week? I mean, he's still very turnover prone. I don't think he's your quarterback of the future, but do you keep Mills in there and just sort of pack things in, play for the draft pick, see if Davis Mills can become something, or do you bring Tyrod back and make a go of it here?
I think it all depends on what you think, whether Mills is your future or not. If he's not, then I think we've pretty much seen what Mills brings to the table. As he currently sits, he probably makes a pretty good backup quarterback. And if that's the case, if you don't see him in your future plans, then I think you bring Tyrod back if he's healthy and just try to get some wins and sell some more tickets. We know that draft-wise, they're in a really bad situation, so it's not like you can say, oh, Tank, you're going to get something good in return. It's not really the case with this team. So I would think that if he's your future, then maybe you keep him in there, keep exposing him to NFL defenses and try to get him to grow. But if he's not in your future plans, then you try to sell some tickets and bring Tyrod back.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, let's go back and get back into the Chicago Bears versus the Green Bay Packers. You'll never guess this. The Green Bay Packers beat the Chicago Bears with Aaron Rodgers here. Not a lively game, I'd say, but Packers pretty much dominated it from the start and sort of owned it. Not flashy, but good, easy win from the Pack. What'd you make of this game?
It was an okay game. I mean, exactly what I anticipated to happen. Green Bay is just a better team. Even if they're not playing to the level that we expect Green Bay to be playing, they're still a better team than the Chicago team. We saw some nice things from Chicago on offense, and defensively, some of their guys are actually making plays. I saw Quinn; he got called out a couple of times out there for making some nice plays. So they're playing okay. It was a rival team, and I think the most entertaining part of this game was actually the end. When Aaron Rodgers went up to the end zone and just went up to him and said, "I own you. I own you. I've owned you my whole life," or whatever. And that was probably the most entertaining part. But overall, much better team ended up winning this game, and that's just kind of the way that it goes.
Yeah, I will say, Fields has looked a little bit more poised in the last couple games. I'm curious if this Bears team can sort of stick around here, stay in and around 500, work their way into playoff position, especially as we've seen, some of these other lower tier teams sort of fall off. Carolina, the Washington football team, the Giants is a complete, lost cause. There's no telling what we're going to get from Seattle. So, if they can sort of beat the poor teams and stay in and around a game like this, they were in this game. They probably weren't going to win it. But, if something freaky happens, a fumble happens, they pick it up, get a scoop and score, or get him into the red zone, they're in this game and they can probably win it. So I sort of liked what I've seen progression-wise from Fields. I think this team could stay in and around, playoff threat territory. Now, I don't think they'll be a factor in the playoffs, but I do think they can work their way into a playoff spot here.
I still don't see them as a playoff team. I think that they can get there just based off the way things are turning on in the NFC, which is funny. We don't come into the season. We talked about the powerhouse teams and who was going to dominate. And it's one thing. There's so many variables in the season that you never know what's going to happen. Now you see the current situation and the climate that we're in.
Yeah.
They could definitely get into the playoffs. But as you mentioned, I don't think that they're one of those teams that anyone's really, fearing matching up against in the playoffs. But they're making good strides, and I'll be the first to admit, Justin Fields is definitely growing. I thought he wasn't ready, but he started to show some good signs going forward.
Well, it always happens when Nagy is no longer calling offensive plays for you.
Yeah, that helps too.
All right, we'll move on. And I think this was our worst pick of the, possibly our whole careers. The Cincinnati Bengals 34, the Lions 11. The 11 was being kind in this game. This was not close at all. The Bengals defense seems to be legitimate. I don't know where it came from or how it came together, but it's come together. And, they're a little sloppy on offense, but they get enough explosive plays to score enough points. And this defense seems to, just get stops. They shut down the Lions completely here. Now, once again, I speak. The Lions' leading receiver was, of course, DeAndre Swift and TJ Hawkinson. A running back and a tight end. Probably not what you want coming out of your wide receiver core, but I think we both thought Detroit was going to be able to stay in this game a little bit, and they were not able to stay in this game.
Well, for the record, I thought that Detroit could possibly stay in this game. I didn't think they would win this game. And also for the record, I believe this one was a pick that you really liked that I kind of gave into. But anyways, yeah, Cincinnati, as you mentioned, they've shown some really good signs on offense, a bit sloppy at times, but that's to be expected because they're so young. But I like what I'm seeing from this team. What I kind of imagined this team to be like, this is what I thought the Giants would be like, with all the star players that they had there coming, back from injuries and things like that. I thought the Giants would be kind of this type of team, maybe not a super dominant team or anything like that, but a team that could, you don't want to overlook, because if you overlook them, they're going to run all over you.
Yeah.
They've got some really nice options on offense, and defensively, they're making enough plays to keep themselves in the game, especially against these poor teams. It's really unfortunate for the Detroit Lions in the situation that they're in. I thought they would be a little more competitive than they were. As you mentioned, this game wasn't even close. The score isn't really relevant based off the way the game actually went. So tough loss for the Lions, good win for Cincinnati. And be careful, man. They might start making some noises.
Yeah, I was looking it up, and they're now the 5th ranked defense in total DVOA by Football Outsiders. So, right below the Rams and right behind Buffalo and Arizona. So, heaven forbid, this team might actually be good. I was thinking a little bit. You know who they remind me of Miami of last year. Finding plays on offense, it's not always pretty. They can't protect the quarterback at all. It'll be a miracle if Joe Burrow can survive. But they find plays on offense, and their defense is really good, and it keeps them into games. And when they play teams like the Lions, I didn't like Bengals as road favorites, but they seem to be able to just toss past these sort of really, really poor, teams here. So maybe time to take them a little bit more seriously here, even if they are road favorites.
Yeah, unfortunately for them, not a lot of teams like the Lions out there.
Yeah, I know. A quick thing on the Lions. Goff is now 0-12 without Sean McVay. Some of that is a little bit of fake. That Rams team was basically trying to lose on purpose, so their attendance numbers dipped so poorly that they shipped out to L.A. They weren't built to win, and, then he gets traded to this Lions team, which is basically playing low-level college people as their NFL wide receivers. So I think that stat is a little bit, skewed and manipulated. If, like I said, if he was on the Pittsburgh Steelers would probably be 5-2 right now. So, let's look at it with, a little bit of a long view here. But I do think that's sort of got to wear on you a little bit mentally, especially probably when it's now getting thrown in your face pretty much every day of the week.
Oh, definitely. I don't look at that particular stat and really hold it against them. I look at it with a grain of salt because, as you mentioned, that St. Louis team was obviously trying to, lose games, get out of town. And now this is Detroit team, as you mentioned earlier, your leading receivers were running back and a tight end. I mean, do I have to say anything else? It's a very unfortunate situation he finds himself in, but, he's known a lot of winning. He definitely had some losses without McVay, but he's also known a lot of winning, and maybe he can bounce back with just, his attitude. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
The other thing is, legitimately, I keep up bringing the receiver theme, but their receiver group, every one of them might not even be in the league next year. That's how poor that receiver group is. So, it sounds cool when you run it across the bottom line, 0-13 without Sean McVay, but then you sort of start to look at it and, 90 to 95% of the quarterbacks would have that same record. Peyton Manning might not be winless without Sean McVay. Tom Brady might not be winless without Sean McVay, Aaron Rodgers. But, you take any sort of middle the road to low-tier quarterback, they're all going to sort of be 0-12 with the situations he's been put in without McVay.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, let's move on to said Rams game. I don't know what to say about this. The Giants didn't have a fair fight. The only thing I'm half curious about is I'm curious what brain doctor cleared Daniel Jones to play football.
I have no clue. I really didn't. When I started watching the game and I saw him warming up, I was like, what is going on? I did not expect him to play in that game whatsoever. I don't even think I heard him being active for this game. It completely shocked me. I mean, I won't take up too much time on this game because it really wasn't, anything to write home about. But that was, I think, one of the bigger storylines is why would you even risk your young quarterback? You know that this is going to be more than likely a loss. Why would you risk his health, and put him in play when there's really no need to? I didn't understand the move.
Yeah, I was stunned they cleared him, but I started to hear word on Saturday that it was going to be cleared. That's why that line sort of dropped from 9 to 7.5 by game time. And I was like, there is zero chance that man should be cleared. And he looked like he had been knocked loopy the week before in this game. Also, they had no weapons. Tony tried to make it a go, but, he limped off, 2 plays into the game. This was just a lopsided game with really no chance for the Giants. I will say the Rams did what they were supposed to. Defense looked pretty solid, but this is sort of no one cares. This might as well have just been a glorified exhibition.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest storyline out of this was Sean McVay at the post-game presser basically coming out and very angrily calling out his team, saying they need to start better. And kudos to that Giants defense that came out early and they fought and they weren't going to give up. But ultimately, the talent was just, too much to overcome.
Yeah. One other thing, I will say I'm liking what I'm seeing from Darrell Henderson. Starting to get more and more carries here, looking really, really good as the running back. I mean, his yards per carry aren't great, but basically that's what you need. You need about 20 carries from him in and around 70, 80, 90 yards here. I don't think he's ever going to be that explosive, back who's going to hit, whole, long, deep play. But I think he's a good running back to hit that 4 or 5 yards a pop here.
I did see I'm not sure how accurate this is, but I saw some stat line somewhere where they had him, I think, in the top 10 in rushing this season. I don't know how accurate it was, but if that's the case with, him missing time and everything, pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think so. Like the way he's coming around. I always liked Darrell Henderson, so good to see him getting some carries here. We'll see if he can stay healthy, which I think has been the main thing overall. All right, next up, Chiefs and the Washington football team. Once again, Chiefs plagued by turnovers and a slow start. But, as per always, they found their offense, got a couple late plays there. I don't want to quite hit the panic button here, but, there was another interception in the red zone by Patrick Mahomes. Granted, it was a, dropped pass from his receiver that popped up. There was a fumble in the red zone. This team just seems sloppy, and we keep going, all right, it'll come around. And they have the talent to overcome it, especially versus Washington team, which is somehow atrocious on defense. I don't quite understand that, and it is not much better on offense. Tyler Heineke sort of is getting worse, week to week here as teams sort of figure him out. What is your level of concern here from the Chiefs based on, it's now 6 games into the season, and the sloppiness has continued?
Well, my concern level remains basically on par as it has been over the last few weeks, which is still concerned. And it's because that defense we know is very poor. They really can't stop. Even the poor teams seem to score on them. Now, thankfully, they have a really explosive offense that can put up points, which is one of the reasons why they won this game. But as you mentioned, Mahomes, even though one of them wasn't his fault, he had a couple of picks in this game. You're talking about a defense that, even though we expected good things from them coming into the season, they really haven't shown much offensively this year, the Washington football team. Yet they made some plays against this Kansas City team. And if you go up against a really good defense, the Chiefs, it's got to be scary because if they can slow you down enough on offense, what are you going to do defensively? You can't stop anybody. So, I don't know. I'm still concerned, but, I still hold out hope if I'm a Chiefs fan because you've got Patrick Mahomes and you've got so many other weapons on offense.
Yeah. It's a weird thing. I'm like, yes, I'm concerned, but then, if the playoffs started now, I don't think I'd be very, vigorous in wanting to take anybody against the Chiefs quite yet. So, yes, the turnover is becoming more and more of a worry to me, but, maybe they'll just find their groove here, but, switch to this Washington football team. They're the probably only hope somewhat to be a contender versus this Cowboys team in the NFC East. Is there even a hope here, or is this, we already marked off the Giants. I'm probably marking off the Eagles. Is there any life can be found in this Washington football team?
Unfortunately for them, I think there's just too much going on right now. both on and off the field. So I don't think things will look good for this team, and they're probably just going to go ahead and throw in the towel. They can't get anything going on offense. Defensively, they're not what we thought they were going to be, and issues off the field, I think it's just becoming too much.
Yeah, I think so too. Honestly, I think Philly might be able to end up with a better record. As hard as that is to say, as poor as I think they are. So, you know, I just there's nothing in that NFC East. Basically, the Cowboys can do whatever. They might clinch this thing by Thanksgiving. As weird as that is to say.
It's possible.
Yeah. All right. Let's get to the Arizona Cardinals and Cleveland Browns. I will say this was my favorite Arizona game to watch so far this season. I thought they looked the best they had so far in this one. Flip that around. I'm beginning to get concerned about Cleveland, not just injury-wise. Kareem Hunt is out now without Chubb. The onus went on Baker Mayfield. We both probably are under the same mindset that the onus should never be on Baker Mayfield to do anything. Now he's out for that Thursday game. This Cleveland thing seems to be like a ship that's rocking and starting to crumble here at the foundation.
Yeah, I look at it as a building on fire, and all the residents are starting to jump out, and that fire's moving upwards, and it's becoming a little concerning if you're one of those penthouse residents, because as you mentioned, they're getting hurt, and they start off the season so promising. They're playing really well, not as good defensively as we thought they would, but still a really good defense, and the offense was really clicking even with the injuries they were dealing with. But now you throw some more injuries on top of that. You're talking about Baker Mayfield and, Kareem Hunt, and it's a bad situation now in a short week where they have to play on Thursday night against a Denver Broncos team that also hasn't quite been living up to the hype, but they're coming in very, very shorthanded. So I think if you're a Cleveland Browns fan, you have to be concerned, especially the way the division is kind of playing out right now. And maybe you can get healthy and right the ship, but as of right now, I'm definitely concerned.
Yeah. Browns are 3-3. Steelers are 3-3. If I said one of these teams was going to make the playoffs, the other was not, which one do you think you'd lean towards here right now?
It's hard to say without really knowing the extent of these injuries. Yeah, possible. But it's really hard to really say without knowing the extent of the injuries on this team. If you were going to tell me these guys are going to be healthy in 2-3 weeks, then I would probably still lean more with the Browns. I think they're a more complete team than the Pittsburgh Steelers are, but Pittsburgh's also kind of finding its mojo. They kind of, they found new life in this running game that they've kind of got going. And I think if you're a Browns fan, it's something to keep an eye on, with the injuries you're dealing with and the way this Pittsburgh team's kind of starting to play a little bit better. Maybe that playoff spot isn't quite, as certain as we thought it was to start the year.
Yeah, definitely so. All right, our annual Do We Believe in Arizona Yet? 6-0. Only a team undefeated left on the season. Do we believe in Arizona yet?
Okay, so I'll say this, all right? This was definitely, I think, the most complete game that I've seen them play against a good team. Now, granted, they were shorthanded, but it was still a good, Cleveland Browns team. And Arizona looked dominant. I believe the spread on this, they were 3-point dogs, if I'm not mistaken. And I knew they were going to win this game. I just didn't know how they were going to win it by, because I know how talented they are. I know how good the players on that team are. It's just their method of winning that I have an issue with. Coming into this game, they didn't have their head coach, and they basically proved that it didn't really matter. They still put up big numbers, and they look very flashy doing so. But again, it's their method of winning that I'm not in love with. I feel like so many things can go wrong, especially in a big game like a playoff game. Regular season game, you can forgive a loss, especially the way they've been playing. But in a playoff game, it's one win or go home, and it scares me. But I do think they're a very good team, and they're very definitely deserving of probably being the favorite right now in the NFL to go all the way.
Yeah. I think I'm probably going to have to concede now that they are going to be in and around probably the 1 seed, especially as we've sort of seen that NFC West drop off just a little bit, and it probably be really a 2-team race, then a gap to San Francisco, then another gap to the Seahawks. Whereas, at the start of the season, we thought these teams would be, tooth and nail fighting at each other. So, yeah, probably going to be in and around a top speed, but I'll give them regular season credit so far, but I'm not one that's going to trust this team in the playoffs just yet. So we're getting closer and closer to believing in the Arizona Cardinals, but not just quite yet. All right, let's move on to the Raiders and the Broncos. We said this was going to go one or two ways. Either the Raiders were going to galvanize and dominate this game, or they were going to go flat. They galvanized, and that offense played really, really well. Best it's played in, I believe, about 2 weeks. Derek Carr was fantastic in this game. That being said, I think this Broncos team, who's now on a 3-game losing streak, might not be that good. Defense has looked worse and worse week to week, and overall this offense looks pretty poor as well. And now randomly Teddy Bridgewater is throwing interceptions, which he's not a quarterback who's skilled enough to be turning the ball over. What'd you make of this game?
I thought it was a pretty entertaining game from a perspective of a Raider fan. Not so much if you're a Bronco fan, because you kind of anticipated this game to go, as you mentioned, 2 ways. Either the Broncos would completely destroy the Raiders, who would throw in the towel, or you would get beat up by a Raider team that was completely pumped up and united based off the drama they came off of with last week. You mentioned it prior to this game. You asked the question, if the Raiders find a way to come together and win this game, pull off the win, is this a one-time type of ordeal where they basically put all their energy into one big, final attack, and then they completely fall flat for the rest of the season? I think that obviously remains to be seen. But offensively, they played really good. Defensively, probably one of the better defensive games we've seen from them this season. Granted, it was against this Broncos team, but I still thought they played pretty well. They, really made some noise in the backfield, and they were all over the quarterback. So I don't know. I think this obviously can go to both two different ways. It can either be a positive for the Raiders, and they can really take this win and keep snowballing off of this and unite themselves. Basically them against the world, or this could be basically their last gasp out, all they had, and the rest of the season will be a complete letdown. I wouldn't blame the team if it goes either way, but it's going to be interesting to see how they play going forward.
Yeah, I think they could stay in and around, 500, maybe a little over 500, especially from what we've seen on the offensive side of the ball from the Raiders. The only concern I'd have is if a losing streak happens. If they go through a stretch like they went through 2 weeks ago, do they have that energy to bounce back from that? But as long as they sort of probably hot and cold, 1 game good, 1 game bad, 1 game good, they probably can stay in and around the playoff hunt, especially with the skills offensively. Denver side of things, are you ready to sort of put a stake in this team, or do you think they have another life to give here?
I probably would feel a little more comfortable staking this vampire it right in the heart if it wasn't for the fact that they're going to play the Browns with half of their offense on Thursday night. So I'm not quite ready yet. I'm going to give it 1 more week and see how they perform this week. But if they can't perform against this banged-up Browns team this Thursday night, then I think it's time to move on.
I do have a suggestion. Maybe try running the ball. Throwing 50 times with Teddy Bridgewater when Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams are both averaging 5 yards a carry. I don't know. 21 carries doesn't seem quite enough. But hey, I'm not an offensive coordinator. But if I got two backs averaging 5 yards a carry, and I got a quarterback who's throwing picks left and right and is throwing for 5 yards a reception, hand the ball off. Maybe they'll do that this week.
We said it before. We've said it several times, over the last couple of seasons. Teddy Bridgewater is a game manager. He's not the guy who's going to lead you down the field for a victory. He can do it, but that's not the type of guy he is. He's a game manager. Run the ball and protect the ball and have him make throws when he has to make throws. And that's how he'll win you games, not by turning him into the second coming of, Eli Manning or whatever.
Yeah. All right, moving on from this game, we're going to go to our next one. Decent game that we had here in the Cowboys versus the Patriots. I will say a hint, I was crushed in my soul because I had the Patriots plus in this one. I thought I had it when Coach Mike McCarthy decided to kick a 50-yard field goal on 4th and 2 from the 33, down 1. I was in good spirits as Coach Mike took over. The only thing that can hold this Cowboys team back. But lo and behold, Patriots couldn't get it first. Got the touchdown. Cowboys came down, scored it up. What do you make here? Cowboys, once again, offense looks unstoppable. But I will say there were numerous coaching decisions that make me very leery going into a playoff session with this team.
I thought this was probably the most entertaining game of the week. And I really didn't expect it. I on the other hand, was kind of elated at the final outcome of this game because, unlike you, I took the opposing side.
Just so you know, I'm making a ruling that if you have an underdog and it's a tied game going into overtime, the person who has the underdog should automatically win.
Okay, sounds fair.
Just a little note there.
Yeah, make sure you pass that one on to Vegas, see what they think about it.
All I know is in soccer, if I play the 90 minutes and it goes into extra time, I don't get that extra time pointage as well. So I think the same thing should be going on in football.
Well, this is why this is called American football. But anyways, I forgot where I was. I was talking about the Cowboys.
Chumming about your big overtime touchdown pass to CeeDee Lamb as Mike McCarthy was playing for the field goal in overtime as well.
Oh, honestly, I really thought that I was going to lose that one, but it worked out in my favor. I got lucky.
I was getting it two-way from you and the Dynamite. It was like, I got the Cowboys.
Yeah. Listen, don't talk about Dynamite right now because I got it from him Monday night. So anyways, back to this game. The Cowboys, their offense, man, that's scary stuff. Two things became pretty obvious to me, as if we already didn't know. This passing attack of the Cowboys, although we don't see the usual suspects putting up the big numbers, it's still a deadly group of wide receivers out there that can make big plays. Another thing, the running attack, this is no longer the Ezekiel Elliott show. Maybe it becomes that a little more in the postseason if they can make it all the way there. But this is definitely a timeshare between him and Pollard now. They've both been playing pretty well. They complement each other really well. And it was a big win for them. Obviously needed overtime to pull it off, but it was a big win. Defensively, we saw, I believe, another interception again from the young rookie. Listen, I understand he's not a shutdown corner, okay? He got burned a couple of times, but the guy is a playmaker, and that's his biggest asset is that he can make plays on that defense. It's hard to really keep throwing at him. Even if he gives up a few plays, I wouldn't feel confident throwing the ball in his direction because this guy will turn it over. He'll find a way to turn it over. For the Patriots side of the ball, tough loss. They were in it. I didn't think they'd be this close. Offensively, they're getting better, and that's definitely a positive sign going forward. I think their quarterback is probably the best-looking rookie quarterback so far this season, and at least offensively, I think that so far he's probably my candidate for Rookie of the Year.
Yeah. That being said, the defense, once again, is porous for the Patriots. Now you can understand it a little bit in this Cowboys team. Patriots sit at 2-4. Are they going to be able to work their way into contender status, or it's going to be probably a 6-7 win team here?
I mean, I'm not going to give up hope on a Bill Belichick-led team. This team has had a lot of success over the years, and granted, it's not the same team that it once was. They don't have the same leader, but I see a lot of bright things in Jones. He's definitely shown a lot of upside. I wasn't a huge believer to start off the year, and he started off really slow, but he seems to really pick up the pace over the last couple of weeks. And as I said, I think that right now he's probably the best looking rookie quarterback we have. And that's saying a lot, considering the fact that there's some pretty good ones out there.
Yeah. I will say the fun conspiracy theory out there, some New England, or I should probably say Boston reporter wrote an article that is blaming Matt Patricia for this because he has a job with the Patriots. His role isn't really defined, but he's on the Patriots staff. And if you remember the last time the Patriots defense was this bad, it was when they went to the Super Bowl and were heaving points to the Eagles and a bunch of other teams before Patricia got the job with the Lions and did not turn that situation around. And now he's back with the Patriots, and this is probably the worst defense probably since that 2016 team. Are you blaming Matt Patricia for the New England Patriots problems?
That poor guy gets all the hate, man. I'm sorry, but I'm a fan of the beard. I can't throw all the hate on him. I like the guy, even if his tenure was poor as a head coach. But, yeah, I always blame him.
Yeah. Matt Patricia's defense is very porous, though I believe it's a Belichick kid in charge of it. Son, not actual Belichick.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on. Steelers, Seahawks. I wouldn't call this the most entertaining Sunday night game of all time, but it was a close one. And I think pretty much his career, Geno Smith is good enough to keep you in the game, but is also good enough to always find a way to make sure you lose the game. The sack fumble in overtime, Steelers got that touchdown. This was a little bit of make or break, I think, for both these teams. Somebody was going to go to 3-3 and have a little bit of hope. Somebody was going to go to 2-4, and it's looking like an uphill battle. Seahawks now 2-4. Wilson likely not come back until, week 9, 10, even. I think that might be a little iffy when you start fooling around with, fingers on your, throwing hand. But Seahawks, I thought fought really, really well here, but couldn't quite get it done, fall to 2-4. But Steelers, not pretty, but a win here, moved to 3-3, put themselves sort of back in contention here.
Yeah, I mean, both teams, obviously, this was a very important game for both of them. Either, like you mentioned, one of them was going to go to the 500, where the other one was going to fall, probably further down the division. Unfortunately for the Seahawks, it had to be them, and they're probably in a division where they can't really afford to give up any games, as the Rams and the Cardinals just seem to pull further and further away now. But both teams came into this matchup a little banged up on both sides of the ball. I thought that defensively the Steelers would do enough to kind of bother Geno Smith and, make this game a little easier for them. But Geno Smith looked good. He didn't look horrible. And this is a Pittsburgh defense that, although it hasn't been playing at a very high level over the last couple of weeks, is still, pretty stacked and can play really well at times. And he came out and he was very efficient. They didn't turn the ball over. I think the big dynamic change with this team, with the Seattle team, is the fact that, he doesn't run the ball like Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson can make something out of nothing. If he's back there and, the protection breaks down and the wide receivers can't get open, he'll find a way to move the chains, whether it's with his legs or scrambling long enough for the wide receiver to get free and then making a play through the air. But Geno doesn't really quite bring that. So the fact that they don't have Russell Wilson hurts them. So they have to rely a little more on the running game. The running game looked a lot better than it has over the last couple of weeks. And I only expect it to get even better as they focus more on a ground attack going forward. I don't foresee them trying to run the same type of offense that they would if Wilson was healthy. Now, hopefully they can get him back. There's optimism that his hand's healing a lot faster. But even if it does, as you mentioned, you don't want to play around with hand injuries, especially on your throwing hand.
Yeah, definitely so. So good win for Pittsburgh. We'll move on to the Monday night game, and it was a fun night at work as the Dynamite was popping around with a little bit of skip in his step. Would have been interesting if your boy Josh Allen doesn't slip on a 4th and 1 and grinds into the end zone and the Bills win. But anyway, needless to say, Titans pull out a big win here. I thought Buffalo left a ton of points on the table. This thing was pretty much just summed up by the red zone. Buffalo went into the red zone, I believe, 6 times, only got 3 touchdowns out of it. And the Titans were in the red zone, I believe, 3 times and got 3 touchdowns out of it. So red zone efficiency, as always, is one of the key stats. And, that being said, when Derrick Henry's humming like this, the Titans can win football games. I think we've said it all, season long. We don't think the Titans are a bad football team, but they come and go as Derrick Henry goes. Their defense is poor. Their offensive line is poor. But if Derrick Henry's humming, it presents a lot of problems for a lot of teams. He was humming, and the Titans pulled out this win here.
Yeah, the Titans came into this game with kind of hobbled A.J. Brown. He was suffering from food poisoning illness, the last few days prior to the game. Julio Jones just came back from injury himself. And as you mentioned, that Titans defense has been porous pretty much all season long. So this victory, I don't think obviously it has something to do with Derrick Henry. He had a monster game, but I don't think he's the biggest, newsflash in regards to this win. I think that's that defense making that goal line stands when it was in the red zone. This Buffalo team, they were talking about during the game, their red zone percentage, their efficiency, and it's pretty good. But the numbers kind of threw me off a little bit because it seems like they don't get into the red zone a lot. This is a very explosive team that can score from deep outside. They don't necessarily have to get within the red zone to actually put up points, which is one of the reasons why their red zone attempts aren't as high as you would think they are for a team that scores as many points as they do. But this Titans defense really shut them down in the red zone. They did a really good job at keeping them outside and, limiting the amount of points they were able to put up. I really wanted the coach to go for a field goal to go into overtime. Maybe because I'm being greedy and I needed this game for a parlay, but I don't blame him for it. I thought that the decision was completely fair. As everybody out there was saying, this is a big guy who can run the ball and he can move the chains. You're talking about 1 yard, if that. If I had to do it, I'd probably go with the same thing. But it is what it is. They ended up with the loss. I think this is probably a big bump for Tennessee's, for their ego and their confidence going forward. I think that this is something they can build on. When Derrick Henry plays the way he did,
Dynamite David's ego, or for the Tennessee Titans ego?
Yeah, I got Tennessee Titans and Dynamite confused there. I thought they were one, but it was a good win for them.
I have to say, our man G was also hopping around the store.
It was quite a few people out there, and it seems like I had a little visit from just about everybody to find out if my bet had covered or not. I should have listened and I should have cashed out early, but it's gambling. We got to roll the dice sometimes, right? Yep. Didn't work out for me this time, and maybe it'll work out for me this upcoming week.
Yeah, I will say I don't want to hammer Buffalo too much. They had almost 500 yards of offense. I will say this was the first one, in a couple games where the rushing attack, they seemed to abandon it pretty quick. But I have, I've watched a lot of Buffalo games so far this season, and their red zone offense has been a little porous. As you were mentioning it, I looked up their stats. Now, a little bit of this is skewed based off, Monday's game, but they're 26th in the league 55.17% on red zone efficiency as touchdowns. So if they're in the red zone, 55% of the time they're getting a touchdown. That's 26th in the league. And I've sort of noticed it. They blew Miami out 35-0, but this problem, sort of came up a little bit. It came up in that Pittsburgh game that they lost. They were down there 3 or 4 times in that first half. Could have blown that game wide open. They did not quite get it. Again, this time, they did not quite get it. Now, granted, the Dynamite was gloating about the Tennessee Titans defense, but I believe they got a hold on a touchdown play. They got a false start on a play down there. So I don't know how quite much it was the Tennessee Titans defense. I guess you could sort of credit that 4th and 1 stop, though once again, it looked like Josh Allen slipped. It
was a combination of a slip and penetration from that defensive line.
Now, you mentioned the going for it. I was always go for it. And then you look at the stats. Allen was 13 for 13 on 4th and 1s. You maybe play it safe, but then I think I'd be a little bit hypocritical since, I've given LaFleur so much crap about not going for it on that 4th down in the playoff game last year versus the Tampa Bay Bucks and kicking that field goal. Now, granted, this one was more to tie the game and to get to overtime. That one was to get the game to 4. So that one looks a little bit more stupid than the other, but I was all for going for it. A road game on Monday night in the regular season in a non-division game. Like I said, they'd been 100% on 4th and 1s with Josh Allen sneaks. So now they're 13 of 14. Sometimes it just doesn't work.
I will say, even though Julio Jones has lost a step, I thought that catch was pretty impressive when it got batted in the air, and it seemed like the defensive guy lost track of where Julio Jones was, and Julio Jones never lost sight of the ball.
Yeah, I think the hands are still there. I think it's the hammies that are no longer there.
Yeah, that's what's missing.
Yeah, I think if he could walk pass routes, he'd probably be okay. Have you seen those TikTok videos that have been going around where people are running routes, but they're not running routes, they're walking routes, and they're getting people to come out of their shoes basically just by walking and turning and things. It's pretty funny stuff, but that's the type of thing Julio Jones would be really good at now. He might be out of the league after this year, so maybe that's what he can take up.
TikTok star Julio Jones.
All right, so that's our recap and review for the week. Are we ready to get into our best and worst of the week?
Oh, yeah, let's do this.
All right, what do we got for the offensive side of things on the best of the week?
For best of the week on offense, I'm going with running back Derrick Henry out of Tennessee. He amassed 143 yards with 3 touchdowns, and as much as it pains me to say, because this game cost me 2 parlays, he had a monster game. Adding in a couple of receptions for a few extra yards, man, the guy was unstoppable.
Yeah, good call there. This is a cumulative award, but I'm going Carson Wentz. 2 weeks in a row, healthy, playing good, efficient football. The numbers aren't like great, but if he can play healthy, efficient football like he did, 3 or 4 years ago, this Colts team becomes a factor. So Carson Wentz is my choice. Where are you going on the defense side of things? For defense, I'm going with the safety,
Taylor. That's a wrap from the LA Rams. After a bit of a rocky start to the season, the young player took advantage of the banged-up Giants, and he came away with 2 interceptions and a pair of deflections, helping his team secure the easy W on the road.
All right, I'm going with the Cincinnati Bengals defense overall. It's not a star unit, but I really want to, highlight that front 7. DJ Reader, Logan Wilson, B.J. Hill. I think those guys are playing well. Also, the 2 corners, as a Woozy, who was I was a little suspect on. Bringing in as a free agent. Even Eli Apple is playing somewhat solid. So whatever this Bengals unit is doing, it's really good, but I really, really like that front 7.
Dynamite pick.
Dynamite picks, baby.
We hit the Stream Deck push button there, so even the dynamite is interfering with our football time.
I'm telling you, he's gloating this week. He is gloating.
Yes, I know. He's all over our podcast. We didn't have time to put away the Stream Deck switcher from the Winning Daily show earlier, and we accidentally clicked the button there as we were moving our mouse to highlight our next up. All right, so, Coach, the best of the week, where are you going?
For best coach of the week, I'm going with head coach John Harbaugh of the Ravens. He gets it out this week in a highly anticipated matchup that were between two playoff-bound teams in the AFC. He got his team ready and executed the game plan to perfection, coming away with the unexpected shellacking of the Los Angeles Chargers. And for that reason, he's my coach of the week.
All right. I want you to take a deep breath. Have you taken your heart pills?
Okay, I'm ready.
I'm going to take Cliff
I got my big horse pill.
As my
No, you can't take him. You got to take his two assistants. I thought about that. I really thought about that because he wasn't there. But go ahead. I took it. Finish.
He wasn't there, but this is probably an overall award. I have given Cliff a lot of guff, but this team is 6-0. This offense is really moving well, and I got to throw some love there. Yes, he was not there at the game, but my guess is he was probably calling the game from somewhere. Modern technology, much like this show is going on, as we are not in the same place. My guess
We're not?
My guess is Cliff probably was managing to be there, so I'm giving Cliff a shout out on the offensive side of things as best of the week. Cliff
he was there. He was there in spirit.
Now he'll go out. Murray will throw 6 picks and he'll make some stupid coaching decision next week. All right. On the worst side of things, where are you going?
For worst of the week on offense, I'm going with quarterback Daniel Jones of the New York Giants. I hate putting him here. I have a soft spot for this guy. Maybe it's because he kind of looks like Eli Manning and he kind of reminds me of him. And I always felt bad for him too. But, back to my reasoning, I know he was shorthanded and facing a team that on paper was much better. But you had 51 pass attempts and threw 3 interceptions in a game that you had no business being in, no touchdowns. Sorry, but that's bad enough. Bad enough to qualify you for worst of the week on offense. So yeah, Daniel Jones.
I can see that. Very harsh, though. I think the man had a traumatic brain injury, and the Giants just decided to let him go out there.
Not so much his fault, but
there's no telling what he was seeing. He probably was seeing all pink jerseys or something.
He probably saw actual Rams on the field.
All right. I probably should give this to the whole offense since they were so poor on the Chargers thing. But, I think Justin Herbert, we praised him a lot and anointed him the next coming. But I thought he was pretty poor this week. So I'm going Justin Herbert as my worst of the week on the offensive side of things. But it should be an honorable mention. All the Chargers on offense were poor. Keenan Allen wasn't that good. Eckler wasn't that good. Mike Williams, who's probably been the best receiver in the league so far this year, he was a little banged up, but he wasn't that good. Just not a good performance overall. But Herbert, who we had anointed as the next great one, not a great week for him.
Yeah, definitely a good call.
All right, what do you got next?
Next, for worst of the week on defense, I'm going with the entire Houston Texans defense, and that's only because offense doesn't qualify as defense. As if it wasn't bad enough, the offense wasn't scoring any points. The defense did absolutely nothing to help its cause, allowing the Colts to ease through the game with a very efficient air attack and a dominant rushing attack, finishing the day by giving up 4 touchdowns and a field goal for the day. That's pretty bad.
Yeah, good call there. For me, it's the Denver Broncos. Yeah, the Raiders played with a lot of energy, but so far the Broncos defense, who we thought was going to be really, really good, has not been very good all season long. And this was sort of the culmination where this is the worst I've seen their defense be. And, that being said, Vic Fangio, defensive coach. Now, they don't have the linebackers to really run their system. Anyway, Broncos, really, really poor on the defensive side of things here. And to culminate that, Von Miller does not look like Von Miller.
Yeah, might be the Old Spice.
Yeah. What do you got next? Coach worst of the week.
For worst coach of the week, I have Coach Dan Campbell of the Lions. After yet another loss and a disappointing performance by even the Lions standards, the coach decided to speak to the media and call out his first-year quarterback for his team. Jared Goff, who they acquired from next week opponent, the LA Rams. And he said, quote, "I feel like he has to step up more than he has, and I think he needs to help us, just like everybody else," end quote. Yet he called him out by name. So how about you get him some weapons and a defense to help him try to hide your shortcomings, your lack of a game plan, or your lack of execution? They always say it starts at the top, and I believe that to be true. Even though I really wanted to get it to Sean McDermott for not going for it on, for the field goal in that overtime game, that's mostly because I wanted to benefit from that. But I had to give it to Lions head coach this week for calling out his player.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy was close, but since they got the win in overtime, I won't hammer him too much. But I'm going Ron Rivera here. He was brought in to sort of clean up this Washington mess. Now, the email thing, that's not on his watch. But, the trainer with the DEA, he brought that guy over from Carolina. He's been with him. He is a defensive coach. This defense is looking worse and worse. And now the offense has nothing. I've been a big Ron Rivera proponent, but he doesn't have these guys organized and ready right now. So he's got to catch a little scruff. Ron Rivera, my worst coach of the week.
That's a good call.
All right, that's our show. Be sure to like and subscribe. Don't miss any of our content. Our NFL preview wins total show is up on the Greenlight Network YouTube page. You don't want to miss that. Get in depth on that NBA. How about those Lakers last night? They looked young and bold and flashy.
And short.
I really like the Rondo Westbrook lineup with Carmelo Anthony and Malik Monk out there, leaving Anthony Davis, the only one who chose to play defense.
Yeah, I thought Dynamite's glory was bad enough. Now I got to hear from you too.
At what point last night were you watching the Dodgers and Lakers and reaming doom upon LA?
No, the Dodger one I had a little more hope for. The Laker one, it was the opening game of the year, so I was like, let the chips fall where they may. But it's a long season, so I'm not concerned.
If we can't take shots at the Lakers after game one, what good are we? All right, where can we find you, Achilles?
As always, you can find that dude Achilles on Twitter at TD Achilles.
All right, be sure to like and subscribe. Don't miss any of our content. Our NFL Pick Show coming on Friday. Our College Pick Show coming on Thursday. Be sure to watch for Winning Daily so you can win daily. That's our show, and we're out.